who studies earthworms for 40 years? I'll tell you, it's Dr. Robert Blakemore. He's an authority in soil ecology. He's a soil ecologist that studies all different parts of ecology with a special interest in soil and earthworms, because what he has found is earthworms are the secret to improving our soil health. Earthworms are what makes healthy soil. Earthworms are connected to not only planetary health, but the health of humanity and all living creatures, because they really are one of the key ingredients, if not the key ingredient, according to Rob. In this interview with Rob, we go deep into his passion about why we need to pay more attention to earthworms, how we can build the population of earthworms, and how many thousands of different species there are of earthworms. I'm Natalie Forstbauer, founder and editor-in-chief of Heart and Soil magazine, and for less than a coffee a month, you can grab your own subscription. Just head over to heartandsoilmagazine.com, enjoy this conversation with Rob, and make yourself an amazing day. Rob, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Natalie. Happy to be here.
It's really exciting to be in this place with you right now, where we actually get to presence one of the most important species on Earth, which is the earthworms. And so before we dive into what earthworms are and why they work and how they work and why they're so important and why it's so urgent that we start to pay attention to them and what we can do, I'm curious, what interested you in earthworms? How did you discover them?
I did a project. I did ecology in London University in the 80s, and it was the centenary of Darwin's book on earthworms. And I thought I'd do a project on soil and earthworms. I come from farming background. So I did some research. I found out that Lady Eve Balfour's Hawley farm hadn't been surveyed for earthworms. So in about 1980, I went out, made the contacts and did a survey. And what convinced me was I went out and surveyed. It was set up as a trial, three-way trial. The farm was divided into 3 sub-farms: organic, conventional, chemical, whatever the prevailing practice was locally. And this was in East Anglia in the UK. And then a mixed farm. Now, traditionally, they'd used a kind of Saxon rotation system on farms, but it had been replaced by the agrochemical system. So this farm was a 3 combinations of different treatments. So the organic fields, it was lovely, rich soil like chocolate cake. It was friable and full of earthworms. But the next fields adjacent to that, the chemical fields, I could hardly walk through. My boots were sticking in the mud. It was very difficult to dig into it. And the earthworms were almost completely depleted. What I've also interesting, the compromise, the mix between organic and chemical was an unhappy marriage. It didn't work because it was almost as bad as the full-on chemical. So this led me to believe that you can't be organic light. If you go organic, you have to be 100%. You could do it in stages, part of your farm if you want to transition, but organic farming seemed to encourage the soil, the earthworms, and I also did yield, and the yield was higher too. So all these benefits from organic farming, I put down, simply condensed it into the state of the earthworms. And that's my thesis, really. Whatever situation you're in, if the earthworms are happy, the soil's happy, that should be enough. So does that answer your question? And since then, I've got caught researching. I've been studying earthworms and soil for that's 40 years ago. And I got sucked down into the whole of taxonomy, where as an ecologist, I want to know my material. So I was in Australia. Every time I dug a hole, I'd find new species. There was no guide to them, no catalog. So I had to do the taxonomic work to identify them. Almost all new species or new records of exotics. But taxonomy is a horrible, horrible endeavor. You have to go back through all the records at the very beginning, written in Latin by Linnaeus, and then move forward until you find an answer. And it could be a tick, and it could take months to do that. Wow. So I got stuck in taxonomy, wasted so much time, but got some answers, named lots of species, sunk some species in synonymies, and found many, many exotics. I find them every trip. Even in my backyard, I found new species here. So yeah, that's the state of knowledge. In my backyard, I can find new species. In your backyard, there might be new species. So This is soil biology. We know nothing about it. It's the key. It's important. It makes the soil. Without worms, there's no soil, or there is soil, but it can be infertile. But the worms, I think, are key to soil and soil health. Soil health is healthy food, then healthy people, which must be something we should all strive to achieve. So
Yes.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It tells me how you got started. And what is it that the earthworms do that's so important? Because we hear a lot about the soil food web and the soil food sponge, or the soil sponge. So I'm curious, what is it about earthworms that is so mesmerizing and valuable?
They're the movers and shakers. I mean, if you had sterile soil and you put any other component like mites or colembula or myriapods, or even the microbes, they'll just sit on the surface. They're not really motile. Fungi are eventually, but if you put earthworms there, they'll rip through the soil. They'll dig these channels, and these channels are aeration, their drainage. They'll mix the soil. The sub-levels, the subsurface will be on the surface, and the surface layers will either be covered or integrated into the soil. They'll mix in all of the organic matter. They'll have these channels are highways for all other soil organisms to tear around and make contacts and make friends and so on. So if you put the earthworms there, every other component will come. Now, no other soil biologist specialist can say that about the group they work on. So I think the earthworms are paramount, and without the earthworms, I think we're stuck. We're in a pickle. I maybe have a picture. No, I've moved the picture downstairs. This one where you have the soil layers, you put worms in and they mix all the soil layers. But the picture I have is gone one stage further. It's planted seeds, and this is the key. When you have earthworms going through the soil, the plant roots can follow the earthworm burrows. They can get more moisture, they get more aeration. So the earthworms do it. They do everything. And look, 1 meter of soil has, was it 9 meters or 90 meters of earthworm burrows? 1 hectare has 9,000 kilometers of earthworm burrows. So 1 hectare of rich earthworm soil. That's incredible. That is all aeration, that's drainage. And you can see a field that's got earthworms in it. It never floods, and it's never dry. The soil soaks up the moisture, it holds it in the humus, the organic matter. And also you can tell there's earthworms. Obviously there's the mole hills if you have moles, but you can hear the birds. When you have a rich field full of earthworms, you can actually hear the songbirds. So, I mean, if I go to a farm, hear insects and birds, I know they've got a good earthworm population. Plus, if you walk across the field, it's very spongy, earthworms. Yes. So I hope that answers your question. Now, earthworms are so key. We need to be having more people doing research on earthworms, talking about earthworms. Farmers and gardeners always interested in earthworms. I mean, good farmers, organic farmers, they're always interested in earthworms. Permaculture is all about earthworms. I mean, in compost, but also in the soil. So we need to be having these conversations. Look, as far as I know it, I'm the only full-time earthworm researcher in, well, Japan, Asia. And I'm only part-time fellow at the local museum, research fellow. But there needs to be more people doing this. I mean, we need to be spreading the message. We need to be talking amongst ourselves about earthworm populations and what's your situation, diversity, how many different species, and so on. So that's why earthworms are important. Look, I wouldn't be wasting my time. If anyone else was doing this, I wouldn't bother, because it's quite stressful. There's a lot of research, not paid. Should be, but it's not. There's no one else doing it. So I have to do it. I have to take responsibility. If you know of someone who wants to talk about this or join me, let's go.
That's exciting. There's a lot more people taking an interest in earthworms with the rise of vermicomposting, for example, worm composting. You said there's lots of different species of earthworms. How many species do you know? Have any idea around how many?
Yeah, 7,000 are named.
Wow.
I don't know how many of those are legitimate names. Some are synonyms I mentioned.
Yeah.
But my estimate is, I don't know, there could be 20,000. There could be 500,000, or I don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, I went to Tasmania. I think there were 50 species when I went to Tasmania. 5 years, and we ended up with 230. So, what's that? We knew a fifth of the earthworms in Tasmania. Same in New Zealand. I went to New Zealand. I mean, they've got a list of about 200 species, but I found many new species in New Zealand. Japan, we had about 100 species. I don't know how many I've added, maybe 10 or something. I don't know. But I still have loads of new species. In my fridge downstairs, I have samples from species, new species, but no funding, no time to write them up, describe them. So it's not unusual to find new species. It's quite, got to be. And this is earthworms, which are big and obvious. Now, for the whole biota, soil biota, it's estimated we know about 1%. We are ignorant. We can't even talk about it.
That's amazing, right?
Naming them is just sorry.
Right. No, I was just I just want to put that in perspective, because it said that in 1 teaspoon of healthy soil, there can be up to or over 1 billion organisms. And so to think that we only know 1% of what is
it changes everything, doesn't it?
It changes everything. It really changes everything. It's I can't even put that into words right now.
But the most remarkable thing, when I find a species, name it. Look, that's the first step. That's just the ecological convenience, a label to hang on it that's unique identifier. Now we use Latin because that's convention, and we use genetics now. We take a little sample, send it off to the lab, get DNA, get a barcode, a gene, a mitochondrial gene barcode. Then we test it against GenBank, which is the library in the US. It's the international library. We all put all our samples in there. GenBank, everything goes into GenBank. You can do it's called BLAST. We do a comparison between our specimen and everything else on the library, and it gives us an answer, closeness of fit. So it should be reliable or unreliable, whatever. So we use barcodes, and they're aiming now for a handheld barcode, so you can actually touch a plant or animal, get a sample of its DNA, and then do it online, real time, to GenBank, and get an answer of what species dealing with. I've heard that Google does this for plants. If you take a picture of a plant, a leaf, have you heard about that? Or flower? It'll give you an answer. Now imagine doing that for every species. I mean, that's what high tech can do for us. So all this talk about organic farming being going back to your medieval feudal system, it's not at all. I mean, organic farming is modern organic farming. No one wants to go back to the old one. But the point I was saying about the naming of species as an ecological tool, name is just the first step to understanding its ecology. We know nothing about its requirements, its associations, its behaviors, all of its benefits. Look how many medicines come from soil. Ivermectin comes from soil. Penicillin comes from soil. Streptomycins come from soil. All of these medicines come from soil. And from earthworms, just one earthworm, we get loads of medicinal pharmaceutical products. So if you think about it, everything that's ever existed has died and gone into the soil. So earthworms actually, they have a broad immunity competency. Their immune system's incredible. I mean, they've seen it all before. They've seen everything, every disease, every ailment, every contaminate. They've seen it all. So they process it, and their biology has a wonderful protection to keep them alive. So we should tap into that. We don't need to be messing around with new chemicals that last forever and are toxic. We need to go into nature, understand the 99% of soil biology we don't understand, and there's no money for it. Absolutely no money. So $2 billion to go look for life on Venus. This, honestly, these people in fairyland, we need to make them wake up and say, look, come on, admit it, you're wasting money, wasting time. We're losing biodiversity. Look, it's 200 species a day, but we're not counting soil biology. So you factor in the extra 99%. I did the calculation, it's 1 species per second being lost, extinction, forever gone. One species per second, including all the soil organisms that we don't know about. That's the state we're in. That should be the most crucial, critical issue we all face. And it's not, and I don't know why. Maybe you know why, I don't know why. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's interested.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I think we've really, I don't know that we've lost our way. We sure have we sure have misstepped. We've misstepped. And I love that you and other people in the space of soil health and of well, in the regenerative and organic space are bringing light to the importance of soil and the important connection it has to our evolutionary growth and to our and to the health of the planet and to the regeneration of not just the planet but our health in all species, right? It's really, really important. And Robert, so we've identified that worms are important. There's over 7,000 species and that we are killing them. How specifically, before we get to what we can do to restore that earthworm population, what specifically are we doing that's killing the earthworms? Why are they declining so rapidly? And tell us how much they've declined.
Oh, look, it's heartbreaking. If I go out to farms, I go to a field, I dig and I find no earthworms. This is what happened in Hawley, 40 years ago. Agrochemical section, no earthworms. And look, I have to tell you, there's some people now, the chemical companies onto it. So they're getting chemists, they're putting ecologist hats on chemists, and chemists are going out telling the farmers all this stuff about earthworms. These guys are chemists. Now, they're not qualified to talk about earthworms or ecology or agriculture. No chemist is qualified to talk about agriculture. Not one chemist can talk knowledgeably about agriculture. We misstepped. It was actually in 1840 where Liebig started. So this is old science, and they still can't stop themselves. NPK, NPK, NPK. And now they talk about, oh, we're going to do genetic engineering. They're chemists doing the genetic engineering. They're not qualified ecologists. That's why GMOs are such a disaster. They know nothing about ecology. They don't know what they're messing with. And we know nothing about genes. Like we're babies learning about genetics. So we're so ignorant. And yet their arrogance thinks they can mess around with. They can't. So how are we losing worms? Well, that's one reason. The academic arrogance. Look, I think one of the biggest risks, one of the biggest problems we have is science is unreliable. It can't be trusted. You shouldn't believe anything you read in science anymore in the journals. So where does that leave us? We have nothing we can go and rely on. Science has become so corrupt and so venal. It's all about the money, so corporate that you can't trust it. You can pay a scientist to say anything, and they will. They'll jump through burning hoops for you. So that's the situation we're in. There are a few guiding lights who are honest and reliable and trustworthy. But how do you find them? It's all kind of lost in the soup. In answer to your question, how are we killing earthworms? All kinds of ways. Number one, poisons. We're poisoning them on the ground with fertilizers and with agrochemicals that are not specific. They're biocides. These are toxic to earthworms. Herbicides, glyphosate, it's patented as antimicrobial. An earthworm, its gut is full of soil. Earthworms live in and of the soil. Their gut's full of soil, full of microbes. They increase the microbes through their soil, through the gut. So what happens, a herbicide, it kills the microbes in the earthworm gut and in our gut, by the way. So glyphosate also, it kills the nitrogen-fixing bacteria in soil. So you need more fertilizers. I mean, this must be some definition of stupidity or idiocy to put these poisons on the soil. So we're losing earthworms to poisons, to compaction. Acidification is the big one, and this is a real shock to me. Soil acidity is a big problem no one talks about, even the researchers who've got the base data. How come they're not screaming it from the rooftops? Or if they are, it's being suppressed by the journals and by the institutes to say, don't mention soil, don't talk about soil, because we want to use chemicals. We get funded by chemical companies. So soil acidity, they talk about the ocean acidity. Ocean acidity has gone up 30% in 200 years. And it will affect soil biota that forms calcareous shells, but only those that live at 3.6 kilometers depth or deeper. So the soil, the ocean acidity is a total, it's a red herring, no pun intended. They're messing with us. Soil acidity has gone up 10,000%, gone down 10,000% in the last couple of decades. It's two pH points, which is logarithmic. So it's 10, that's 1,000 times or 10,000%. sorry, it's 100 times or 10,000%. Now, that should be a major concern. So soil's becoming acid. Worms don't like acid soil. So that's another major reason that's almost totally ignored. Then there's erosion. I mean, soil erosion. I talked about
just before you go to erosion, I just want to name that. So ocean acidity has gone up 30% and soil acidity has gone up
10,000.
10,000?
10,000%. Yes.
This needs to be talked about. This really needs to be presented. So I'm so happy that you named that. I'm so happy that you named that. And I feel like we have many more conversations beyond this conversation to have, because this is really just about summarizing all the different pieces and touching on and all the different important parts of the earthworm. So I'd love to go deeper into some of these topics.
Well, the acidity comes from acid rain. So the acid rain falls everywhere on all land. So nowhere escapes it. I mean, on the farms, it's more intense because they're putting nitrates, but they're also getting this acid rain. And it is nitrates in the rain. It used to be sulfates from burning coal. When they've reduced coal, sulfates, it's now mainly nitrates, plus carbonates. I'm not a chemist. I studied chemistry. I found it really, really boring. I'm an ecologist, and I love ecology. Chemistry is a tiny part of our research. So there's soil acidity is a big one. Now, all the data I've rechecked and rechecked. I've got several resources. These are published accounts. Any one of them is wrong, I'm willing to say, okay, I won't quote that again, and I'll retract the statement. But as I understand, I'm correct on all this data about the soil acidity, and it should be a major concern. Erosion also is a concern. When you see dust in the air, and when you see the brown rivers, it's erosion. Soil erosion, we talked about 1 species per second, 2,000 tons of topsoil lost per second globally, 750 gigatons of soil lost. I mean, think about that. Brown rivers, you see them everywhere. Okay, shut down, it's allowed the rivers to stop the we actually see the animals in the rivers again, right? So all the pollution in the rivers and the ocean, it comes from the soil. So all the money you spend to aquatic or to marine research, they go messing about in boats. Oh, we need more research. Look at the reefs, and let's have a conference in the Caribbean. Not one of them goes out to an organic farm. Not one marine researcher goes out to an organic farm, and all their problems can be solved on an organic farm. Yes. So all the millions and millions of dollars they get and they spend on these stupid projects, they should spend it on organic farmers. Give it as a subsidy to organic farmers. They'll fix their problems, which aren't important, by the way. You've got to rant.
No, that's okay. It really amazes me, Robert, because I've born and raised on an organic farm, and I know from experience and from what I've learned and what I've been told and what I've witnessed, and more I see these conversations happening or summits happening about healthy food and sustainable living and sustainable businesses, and it continues to amaze me how the conversation about agrochemicals or even GMOs is not even a part of those conversations. It's not even a part of the solutions. And so that is something that I'm really being mindful of in stepping forward into being more of a voice for. And so I appreciate you naming these parts of the conversation because they are very important.
No, they have to be brave. Scientists can't be wimps. All the scientists who cop out, there are very few supporting me. It can be a career destroyer, but you're willing to sacrifice the environment, extinction, and the health of yourself, your family, those around you, just for money. I mean, you need to, these scientists, research scientists, need to look at themselves closely and say, look, even last week, there was a research scientist, he published something in a newspaper. And I said, look, you've made a mistake here. He talked about, okay, I'm not going to say the name, but he talked about saving insects in the cities. Now, cities occupy about 1 or 2% of the land surface area. So whatever you do in the city, you're going to, but at best, you're going to make 1 or 2% difference. It's not the issue. The issue is in the farms. The issue is when you buy chemical food, you're poisoning the soil. So the people in the city should be eating organic if they want to save insects truly. This is city announcements. If you can hear the noise in the background.
That's okay.
Some old person has gone for a walk and they mention it and I hate it. They always do it twice. So I don't know if this is blocking out the sound too much, is it? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me okay?
We can just pause and I can take this part out.
Okay, I was going to say something important.
Okay, say something important.
So he said that, so he's ignoring the soil. And he said in the article, of course, we need pesticides in the country to feed the world. They always say that, feed the world. We need agrochemicals to feed the world and GMOs to feed the world. Well, that's all false too. We don't. That's all just hyped up, made up. So I emailed him and said, look, you're off because it's only 1% and you're ignoring that the country is. And he said, yes, but the newspaper asked me to say that. I don't believe it. And I've published something in my book that says something different. I'm going, he makes my work so much harder, and you ask me if I have respect for people who do that. So it's a scientist who's basically saying, yeah, I don't believe what I published. Okay. These people need to look at themselves. So, and that happens all the time. So any newspaper article, any scientists who publish stuff they don't believe. Plus also you get, as I said, they're putting hats on chemists and pretending they're earthworm researchers and they're not. And there's also a thing called greenwash where they have tokenism. Yeah. Oh yes, we understand that we need to save the soil. I'll give you another example. Minimum till. They say, oh look, we can double earthworm populations in the fields if we use minimum till. Yeah, but you've depleted them by like 90%. So you've crushed the earthworm population down to a tenth of what it was. So you've doubled it. So it's 100%. Yeah, but that's only 20% of what it should be. Wow. And in answer to your other question, my survey in the 40 years, I did a meta-analysis I published a couple of years ago. It's got 20,000 hits, so I'm quite proud of that. It found that on average, my summary was about 80% of earthworms are depleted in agrochemical soil. Agrochemical soil occupies maybe 50% of the livable land. So that's a major deal. The insects are gone. You know this. We've all known this for how long? Yeah. About 80%. We're losing the birds. We're losing the mammals. We're losing all these animals disappearing, frogs and so on. Now, can I give you a very sad story? In my town, this is Zama, and we have a station here. And 3 years ago, I counted 6 swallow nests. Swallows, barn swallows, they like humans. They like to nest near us because we protect them from crows, their big enemy. So there were 6 nests around here 3 years ago. This year, not one nest. Swallows came, the first wave went through and moved up country. The residents here, because they go back to where they were born, the swallows return to their nesting site. Those 6 nests, some came, built half a nest and then disappeared. There's no insects. We've killed the insects, but there's no insects. There's no flying insects. If I look out the window now, I can see, at 180, I don't see any swallows. There's no swallows. This is midsummer. They should be everywhere. I can hear a few kind of cicadas and a few crickets, but we're killing insects. That should be a major concern for everyone. And this is the things we can see. We can't see the soil. The earthworms are going too. Soil microbes, I have no idea what's happening. I'm not a microbiologist. Elaine Ingham is the one, the Soil Food Web. She knows all about. She knows all about the soil microbes.
That's right. Yeah.
And they're quite important. After earthworms and fungi, the other soil microbes are kind of important. I'll give her that.
Yes. Yeah. She says we're killing their microbes as well, and we can bring them back through composting, and and through using worm castings as well. But you said, oh, I know this, the swallows. My children's father is an organic farmer as well, and his mentor actually started organic farming because he noticed that the birds on his farm were dying, and he connected their illness and them disappearing and dying to the chemicals that he was using. And he was like, I cannot do this. And so he converted to organic farming, and he saw an increase in birds and an increase in diversity, and he never went back, and he became a mentor to many in the area. Oh, I know the other story I wanted to share with you. You're frozen. Can you
It's
hear
Silent
me?
Spring.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah. Am I
Um,
moving? Okay.
yes, you are.
It's Silent Spring, right? It's Rachel Carson, Silent Spring. Yeah.
Oh, the Silent Spring. Yeah. Just last year, my girlfriend was telling me that one of her friends were driving through Washington down by just south of Vancouver, BC in the United States. And they drive that road all the time. And this past year, or maybe it was a year and a half ago when they drove the road, they did not put on the windshield wipers once. And they said usually they're constantly cleaning their windshield because it's smacked with bugs and they have to clean it all the time just to be able to see. And they said it was really eerie. They didn't have to clean their windshield once in a long drive that took hours to go through the field. So that
What
was
is eerie?
alarming to me. Pardon me?
What is eerie and alarming? It's a global phenomenon.
It
That's
is.
a global, yeah. If you put on a porch light, there's no insects come. A couple of little tiny little things. It used to be,
Yeah.
Street lights used to have bats coming through and ripping through all the insects around the street light. Doesn't happen. Now this is in Japan, it's around the world. I went to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines. The same thing, and this is tropics where you expect loads of insects. The street lights, nothing. There's no insects anymore. I mean, the Shinkansen comes up from Kyoto, Osaka, up to Tokyo. I see it coming in. There's no insects on the front windscreen, and they might be clean off, but there's no insects on the front of the train either. So this should all be splatter, and it's not. Yeah, and I went to drive up through Chiba. It's all country. Last spring, went all the way through Chiba, caught the ferry back. Whole day, not one insect on the windscreen. Plus, I walked my dog next to the beach. The beach was full of dead birds. I mean, I've never seen it. There were every kind of 50 meters, there was dead birds. All these birds are migrated up from the south. They were exhausted. They died at sea because they had no food supply. So this is tangible.
Yeah. Is that this year? Robert, that you saw?
The Chiba was the year before. But this has been happening for several years. It's getting worse and worse. As I said, there were 6 nests 3 years ago in this little area here, and they've gone now. So I was saying to my friend that has children, I said, look, your children's children, your grandchildren, they might never see a swallow. I mean, whatever situation we're going to be in, because this has got so critical that, there is no 10-year plan. There's no 20-year plan. We need this year plan. I mean, we've got to get out of this pickle pretty quick. Now, the best way to do it is to immediately demand organic food. It's not the chemical company's fault. They're just greedy and stupid. It's not even the scientists' fault. They're whatever they are. It's our fault for not demanding organic food, for not demanding health of our children, for not demanding that nature. It's not ours to destroy. All these chemical companies, they should pay for the damage they've done. They know who they are, and they're not paying for Agent Orange. This is from the 60s. How many years ago is that? What's that? They're not paying for this. So that's 60 years ago. They're not paying for this damage that they've done. They need to be held accountable. They shouldn't be allowed to, and they keep producing more and more. They're making new GMO wheat that doesn't show the burning when you over toast it.
Really?
It doesn't go. I mean, and someone said that just just need to teach people how to use a toaster. Why are they doing it? Why are they messing with all this stuff? And we're going to increase cork, and we're going to make the roots produce cork genetically, GMO, because then we can store the carbon. Of course, it doesn't work. Now we know how to do it as organic farmers. We compost everything. Everything gets composted except tea bags and plastic.
Yeah.
And it's returned through worms, and it's returned to the field, returned to the soil. So when we start composting, we say, oh yeah, I'm going to be eating food made from this compost, so I'm going to make sure it's good and healthy. So we put in organic. We eat organic food. All the waste is organic. Yeah. And it's Howard's law of return. Return everything to the field, to the farm. No chemicals. We don't need them. Then GMOs never increased yield. Fertilizers. I mean, fertilizer use has doubled almost. Every couple of decades. for no extra yield. Poison biocide use has gone up 8 times since the 1960s for lower yield. And all the green revolution, the correlation, I did a correlation analysis, was with irrigation. The highest correlation was in irrigation. So that should tell you what plants need is sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and then a few minerals in the soil, not just NPK, the whole suite, and all the enzymes, all the synergies, what are catalysts that it requires for all the biological activity. You need all the components of a living soil to produce healthy plants. Now, any one of those is false, as missing, the system fails on its weakest link. And I have to say this as well, and we're all organic farmers. On the organic farm, you will find every disease there is known. You'll find every pest that there is known, insect, pest, and weed, but only in low numbers. A couple of insect pests here, a couple of weeds there. Nature keeps itself in check. And the weeds, what they call, they're the doctor of the organic farm. They tell you if you're doing something wrong.
They do.
But we've done the problem. We use it as a ground cover, as mulch. We can use it as compost, as fertilizer. Another example, amaranth. Was it pigweed in the US? Because it's resistant to all these chemicals. That's now a big problem. So pigweed has become a big problem. It's called pigweed. Why not grow it and feed it to the pigs?
Right.
And it's also amaranth. Amaranth's a big food. It's a health food. I mean,
Yes,
it's been used by Native Americans for generations and thousands of years. Grow that. Get the seed from amaranth. I mean, why not do that? So all these ideas. So to overcome the pigweed problem, now what they're doing in America, because these chemists can't help themselves, they're using 2,4-D, which is kind of the main component of Agent Orange. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, again, we don't need it. We don't need it.
No,
think, what are you? You want to grow corn? You want to grow amaranth? It's a health food. You can, and the corn's fed to pigs. All right, pig. The name pigweed. Does that give you a clue?
Right.
You're going to feed it to hogs if you have to eat meat. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just saying. I mean, I'm sure some farmers know this, but they're forced into this by the farmers. Shouldn't let chemists on the field or sales reps. Sales reps, they're your best friend. They sell your stuff. Don't care about what happens. Always got an answer. But really, chemists, they don't have any answers. And the farmers ask them what they know about worms. Now, the chemist I mentioned with the earthworm hat, the one who's making foray into ecology for the first time, soil chemist. You're a okay, a pig with lipstick, still a pig. I'm sorry, but you can't be doing that. Okay. I'm upset because there are people saying I'm an earthworm expert and I know about agriculture. No, you're a chemist. You're a qualified chemist. You're not. And all this stuff, you're spreading misinformation, and you're ultimately saying, yeah, but chemicals don't really harm worms and we need chemicals to feed the world. You don't. I mean, this is what they say, and it's all mistruths.
Man, I hear your passion, Robert. So what can we do to build the earthworm population? What can we do to invite the earthworms back and help them flourish?
Build it and they will come. So you make healthy soil, they'll come. Lots of organic matter, lots of mulch, not too wet, but and I mentioned this before. If you have a treatment, do it in stage, like a controlled trial. A control is untreated, and then different levels of treatment. And the earthworms will find their own most suitable, most beneficial substrate situation. So the earthworms will migrate around because they're mobile and they're living entities. They'll do a lot of it themselves. What anyone can do is compost. There's no excuse not to compost. I live in an apartment with a balcony. Yeah, with a balcony. If you've got sunlight, and all Japanese houses have sunlight because they put the futon out to air. So we can grow plants on all the balconies, on all the houses, and we can compost all the vegetable scraps. Everything goes in compost, goes into your plants. You can be growing, your herbs and your vegetables and everything. So start composting, demand organic food, buy organic food. I mean, literally demand organic food. Like how many people have got allergies or illnesses and, just health, human health is going down. I mean, this is another critical situation. All related, by the way. We knew this from Howard and soil agricultural testament and so on, soil and health. We've been looking at this for a long time. So we all know this, and we feel it in ourselves, what's right and what's wrong. And organic food, you'll know this, will speak for itself. When you eat it, you can say, I didn't know tomatoes tasted like that. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, right.
It's convincing. And the most sophisticated analytical tool for detecting toxins and healthy food is the tongue. It's as simple as that. So
there's so much truth in that, Rob, because I know a lot of people who eat a chemical-based diet, and when they're introduced to organic foods, sometimes they notice a taste difference immediately. They bite into a carrot or some fresh peas or a fresh apple, and they are blown away by the flavor that it has. And then there's some people that their taste buds are actually immune or so deadened, so flattened by all the chemical food that they've been eating that they might notice a bit of a flavor difference, but they don't notice the nourishment difference until after they've been eating nourishing food that is high in nutrients, which has been grown organically, until they reintroduce those chemical foods back into their body. And then they're like, whoa, I don't have as much energy, or I don't feel good eating those foods. And that, I think, is where the magic is, because people are so used to feeling numbed and feeling lethargic and feeling burnt out and feeling like the brain fog and all the things that they don't even know they're missing.
Exactly. There is magic. There's also rationale and there's science behind it. I mean, for example, I mentioned glyphosate. It's a chelating agent, and that means it locks up. Well, it actually locks up heavy metals. So it's locking up minerals as well as killing all the microbes, and it's very effective at that. They patent it. They have a list of all the microbes it knocks out. It knocks out the Entobacter, which is our gut bacteria. It knocks out the soil, the nitrogen fixers. It knocks out the soil bacteria, the earthworm bacteria. Microbe. It's like the whole Actinomycetes, Archaea bacteria, all fungi and so on. In the 1940s, there was a war going on, and in the UK, they decided they need to find out the mineral composition of food. So a guy called Widdowson and someone else did analyses of all the foods, of their constituents, the moisture content, the mineral content, the nutrients, protein, so on, as a baseline to find out how they can overcome, the blockades, the U-boats and so on. Dig for victory, grow your own food. This is an answer to the question how you feed the world. You start growing your own food. But Widdowson in 1940s had this baseline study of all the composition of all the main foods. I mean, it's a really comprehensive list. It's too much to go through. So it's often summarized, and they've been producing it systematically since. Very interesting. All the minerals are going down. All the nutrients are going down. Moisture goes up because it's like us. If we eat salt, we get thirsty. We drink a lot more water. Plants do the same. This irrigation thing, you give them lots of minerals. I mean, they get thirsty, so they soak up more water. So you get a high yield, but it's mainly water. And also, I mentioned about the chelating agent. You're losing the minerals, these essential minerals you need. And so the food doesn't have it. Now, when your body eats food that doesn't have these, you go, I've been eating this food and I'm still hungry. So I need to eat more food. So you get overweight, obesity. How much of a problem is obesity in the West? It doesn't happen in Japan. Japan doesn't have that problem. I mean, they still have a healthy diet here. Fish, rice, vegetables, always soup. I mean, look, I'm being polite. We don't see people who are obviously overweight in Japan. It just doesn't happen. A few, they play sumo, but this is diet. You don't need to know more than that. When Japanese migrated to Hawaii and to South America, a couple of generations, they started to get all the diseases that Westerners have. So it's not genetic. Don't be bringing genetic card. In fact, don't be bringing genetic card in any of this. Don't be saying, oh, there's more cancers or asthma or autism because it's genetics. There's no more genetics. It's environmental. I've talked to oncologists. How many cancers are environmental? Oh, 80, 90%. Yes, it's not natural. We shouldn't be getting cancer. We shouldn't be getting cancer yet. In America, North America, and Australia, all these big meat-eating, industrial the cancer rate's 1 in 2, more than 1 in 2. So it's almost inevitable you'll be diagnosed with cancer at some stage in your life. Oh, and then it gets cynical. Then it gets really dark and cynical because the cancer treatments come from the same companies that make the agrochemicals.
That's right.
Or they're all involved in some conglomerate.
Yeah.
And the shareholders are also the same. I mean, these stockholders, win or lose, they win. Yeah. So Bayer makes glyphosate that causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 3 trials in the US. Another trial just started this week, the 4th one, because they wouldn't go for settlement. So they've lost 3. What happens when these people go to court and they go before a jury of peers, rational humans, their lies don't stand up. We're onto them. Most people know they're lying. So, and they can't admit that. They're actually running really scared. That's why they're getting desperate and so vicious. And that's why they attack. I mean, I get attacked by these people all the time. Don't have funding. Oh, don't say it, you'll lose your job. Okay, I'm a soil ecologist. Where's the Soil Ecology Institute? There's not one. There's no Soil Ecology Institute I know of anywhere in the world. And these people say, oh, there must be, you just don't know. No, I know, there's not. If there was, I'd join, I'd talk to them. How many marine institutes are there? I mean, my friend, he's a marine biologist. He's based in Las Vegas. Switzerland has marine biology. I mean, geez, look, can you not know? We're funding marine biology. Why? Why are we funding? Why are we spending all this money on marine biology? Ignore that. Why are we spending all this money on marine biology? I mean, this should all be going for the duration of the crisis, the biodiversity, the extinction crisis for the next 10 years. Moratorium, anything that's not rebuilding the soil. All our resources should go into the soil, rebuilding the soil, demanding organic food, researching organic food. I mean, we don't need these chemicals that fail. It's a failed project. It was started 1840, 100 whatever years ago was that, 180 years, whatever. It's failed. Stop it. It's failed. We know what to do. Organic farms, they produce rich food as much as their neighbors. And when the climate gets tough, Rodale showed this. Organic sections, they yield even in droughts or floods.
They do. It's incredible. Yeah,
it's resiliency.
It is. It's resiliency and it's build up organic matter and the earthworms, as you say. And I just interviewed Jean and Shelley of Covert Farms, and they've had a major drought there in the Okanagan and BC and in Canada, and they are saying that they're actually irrigating less than they've ever had to, and their production is way up. And here's the other amazing piece of this, Rob, of this story for them is the land that they farmed was sand in 1959. Pardon me, sand. And so they've built up the organic matter through organic farming to a point where it's rich, diverse, and abundantly productive. It's just mind-blowing. And I love what you said about the nutrient denseness and the richness of the food, because it's beyond, I think, food security. It's really becoming about nutrition security, because the foods that we're eating, as you said, are not full of the nutrition that they once were. And that's another reason to go organic and to stop using the chemicals, because it's being shown that when food is grown organically, it is more nutrient rich.
How about this? Look, if you'd want to, look, they say organic food is more expensive. Well, it is, because it's not subsidized. Your tax is paying subsidies for the poisoned food, plus your tax is paying subsidies for the medical treatment you get because from eating poisoned food. Plus your tax is going to pay for the environmental damage that's caused by these chemical companies. So chemical companies aren't paying; they're just rolling in the clover. So your organic food would not be more expensive if we didn't have subsidies, and if some of it went to chemical farms to transition to organic. They should be subsidized. They might lose 1 or 2 seasons. This has happened in India. Whole states in India have gone organic. Denmark's going organic. Russia's all going organic. China's very interested in going organic. So there's no need to have a kickback organic. I mean, now it's only about 2%. They say organic's a big threat to chemical farming. It's not. It's only about 2%. We certified organic. at the moment, farms are organic, 1 or 2%. It's less than that in Japan, 0.6% farms in Japan are organic.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
it's not a threat. I mean, it's a minor endeavor. The soil ecologists study the whole soil ecology, everything, the whole gamut, and earthworms are the key. So the point I was saying is, it's whatever they do, the farmers do, it's the people. So how about this? How about having organic breakfast? So organic, porridge or oats, organic, Weetabix or whatever, Wheat Bix, whatever it is, organic eggs on organic bread. So how about you start off every day an organic, fruit juice or grapefruits? How about organic breakfast? You can call it Morgano. Have organic breakfast mornings. So just start off with one meal, see how you feel for the rest of the day, and your family too, your kids, your lethargic kids, see how they do on starting on an organic breakfast. So just try that. I mean, don't go for the main company's oats, because it's all contaminated terribly with glyphosate. It has to be 100% organic. Yeah. So just start with breakfast. So as I said, whatever the farmers do, it's the people. It's our fault. We need to demand organic food. I go into every store now and I say, "Do you have any organic food?" And they'll go, "No, sorry, we don't have it." And I go, "Okay." I just keep niggling.
Yes, me
and all
too.
my friends. And I say, well, like I'm in a coffee shop here. Is it organic? Is organic? Is organic? Yeah. And look, a lot of the people that work there, they've got children, all have allergies. And I'm going, yeah, kids have allergies. And when they're in there, the kids are sitting there playing games. They're not out, having a worm farm or looking at nature or anything. It's kind of so sad. Yeah, and as I mentioned, their grandkids, the children's children, they won't be seeing nature. In fact, they won't be seeing any of this. It's so critical. We might be destroying the food supply, and climate's out of control, and so on and so on. Actually, can I talk about climate? Since
please do. Please do talk about climate. And I love the invitation for everybody to start with an organic breakfast. That's a brilliant idea.
I know, nice. Morganico or something. Call it something like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to think on that. So talk a little bit about climate.
Only because everyone talks about climate, and you need to know carbon's going up, carbon dioxide is going up. Whatever you say, all the factors get lost. It's going up. Now, what's the major supply of carbon? Well, it's from the soil respiration. Undeniably, you can't deny that. Not talked about. And there's fossil fuels adds a bit to it. So it's from the soil. What's happening, it's a natural process. Compost produces an awful lot of carbon dioxide. We knew that. Albert Howard wrote about that. We know it produces like a huge amount of carbon dioxide, but the net in the compost is higher carbon. And interestingly, also, the net nitrogen in the compost, all the components you put into compost, you end up with more nitrogen than you put in. So how is that possible? Well, the atmosphere is mainly nitrogen, and microbes populate compost, a whole suite of microbes, including nitrogen fixers. So they're fixing nitrogen from the atmosphere. That's where the extra nitrogen is coming from. So it's compost net increase in carbon, despite all the gassing and so on. You have to bear, that's part of nature. You can't do anything about that. Why would you want to? So the point I was getting to, so IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations peak body for doing all this research. Thousands of scientists, thousands of institutions, not one soil ecologist, not one soil institute in any of those, not one soil ecologist. So how can they talk knowledgeably about carbon cycle? They can't. Anyway, they produced a report this Monday, the latest, I have it written down here. It's from Working Group 1, it's the AR6. It's the scientific summary for policymakers. This is the famous report that goes out before the conference in COP26, is it?
Yeah.
In Glasgow in November. So all their findings, I did a search. How many hits for soil? 1,236 in the whole report. I don't know how many pages it is. Probably 1,000. It's a lot of information. So 1,236 hits for soil. How many for ocean and or marine? 8,460.
Oh my God.
So it's marine mafia. They're talking about the ocean as if it's important. Can they stop that? It's not important. It's not important. important. There's no data to show that the ocean is a sink or a source for carbon. It doesn't recycle carbon. It's passive. It's Henry exchange of gases. It's at the surface and it's instantaneous. It shares them, molecules. Some go in, some go out. Depends on the heat. And the ocean is warming, so there's going to be more outgassing from the ocean. So the ocean's a problem. It needs to be drained. No, I'm joking. But they're literally, they're so stupid. They all say this. Now, why do you say this? Because everyone else says it. I didn't ask you that. I said, why do you say that? Well, everyone else says it. Well, you know, they should go back to the primary sources, and there's nothing to substantiate what they say. There's not even any tangible data. The models don't work because they have no data that they can input that's realistic. There's no data to support their thing. So soil, it outgas, we know that. They say about 120 gigatons, up to 200 gigatons. Now, all I've done, I've looked at that, I've said, well, actually it's more because they have Barrow drawdown.
Yeah.
With Barrow's a site in, is it Alaska? It's Alaska, right? Isn't it? Yes, Alaska, not Canada. But there's one in Canada too. You have a meteorological site that measures the boreal situation.
Okay.
So anyway, that draws down an awful lot of carbon every long summer. You know, so I did another search for fish. Fish gets 77 hits. Earthworms, 0. I did permafrost. Permafrost gets 800, which is 1/10 of ocean. So they acknowledge permafrost. Permafrost is the biggest store of carbon. Permafrost is millions of years old. Stores carbon. It's up to 1.5 kilometers deep. It goes under the ocean. I mean, it's ancient, and you know, million-year-old mammoths are falling out of it. We're getting microbes and organisms from millions of years ago dropping out of melting permafrost.
Yeah.
The Siberia's burning. Parts of the Alaska and Canada are burning. The peat is burning. We're losing the permafrost. That should be a major concern. So I also did the search for humus, 0. Organic farm, 0. So this is the IPCC, the experts. They don't know about soil. Soil is the biggest store and the biggest source of carbon. So in answer to the 4 per 1,000, now we can cut fossil fuel emissions by 50, 40, 50%, 100%, do what you like. It's going to make this much difference. But if you increase productivity, green, nature, good farming, you only need to have 1% increase to suck up all the excess carbon. So just 1%. And that's around your garden. So best way is organic farming. No bare soil. Soil should never be bare. It should always be covered with a cover crop or with mulch. So that's how you also get earthworms, but keep the soil covered. And I'm sorry, even regenerative farming. I mean, some of it's good. Yeah. Some of it, I mean, they did a survey with regenerative farmers in USA. 90%, more than 90% said they use agrochemicals.
Yeah, the regenerative farming. I know this.
So I mean, look, you've got to bite the bullet, and you can't be, oh yeah, we're kind of organic, kind of. No, you have to be. See, when you have any, as I told, that mix between chemical and organic, my experience is it doesn't work, and you know, it makes sense. Oh, I just took a little bit of poison. No, look, I just killed half of the biodiversity. No, you can't. You need to be full on. I mean, this needs to be 100% organic farming. You know, how many soil ecologists? I mean, real soil ecologists, not corporate or work for universities, are sponsored by the chemical companies. Can't produce anything that says organic farming, except some false flag studies or minimum tillage, double earthworm populations. No, sorry, doesn't cut it. You have to be honest, open, organic, 100%. And scientists need to be honest. If you lie as a scientist, you're not a scientist. And kind of a lot of them, bit kind of, bend the truth a bit, a lot. I don't know. You need to find out who to trust. Okay, who to trust is yourself. You need to be doing this yourself. Don't trust any of these people. Farmers shouldn't let any of these people, chemists on their soil. Chemist or sales rep comes on a farm, you should say, get lost. Go away. Shoot. You want soil ecologists. You want to talk to organic farmers. You need to know basic permaculture. Yes. I mean, this will fix it. You want an answer to all the problems? Study permaculture. 2 weeks. And 2 weeks, it teaches the teachers. Permaculture is a wonderful philosophy. It's how to live in the world comfortably. Yes. For you and your kids, for forever. It's not about destruction. It's about, having an excess. You don't say, oh, I've made lots of profit. You give it to people. You give away the excess.
Yeah.
And then people give you their excess. I mean, it's a nice system. Save the environment, save people, which is the same thing, and then give it excess. They have an ethics and a moral principle. So it gives them credibility. Now, a lot of companies don't have any credibility. We know that. Advertising, they lie. Sorry, they bend the truth to sell stuff and make profit. That's what they're about. They lie to us. It's like the tobacco companies. They said, yeah, we were lying, but if you smoked and got cancer, it's your fault for believing us. We were lying. It's your fault for believing us. And it's the same now. So study permaculture. Don't believe the lies. Believe yourself. Believe your health. See the difference it makes if you have organic. Enjoy the bird song. Enjoy a bit of nature.
Yeah,
Am I ranting?
Well, Rob, here's the thing. I think you've named a lot of different challenges that we are facing in the world right now in humanity. And so a person can see it as ranting, and at the same time, there's so much passion. You're seeing the results of chemical farming and chemical agriculture on our soil. You're seeing the results of them doubling the worm population from 10% to 20%. And you're seeing the results of what can actually happen when we stop using the chemicals, how the earthworms actually do come back into the soil, do come back to life. What it does. And I grew up in an organic farm, and in 1989, my parents sold that farm. They bought another farm that had been farmed with agrochemicals, and there was not an earthworm on 110 acres. There's not one single, and I'm not kidding you. We dug along the barns. We turned over every single piece of wood. We dug along the house and dug in the fields, and I couldn't find one earthworm. And all I wanted to do was take my little brothers and sisters like fishing in the little creek that ran along the property. And I came from a farm where I could pick up a handful of soil, and sometimes you can count the earthworms. There are so many earthworms in that handful of soil. And so it was really alarming to me. And then I got to see that earth come back to life, teeming with biology and earthworms. And now you go out, you're weeding, and you're pulling out the weeds, and there's earthworms popping up all over the place, and you're picking carrots and you're pulling out earthworms, and they're harvesting potatoes, and you're seeing the earthworms. And so it's amazing. And all we did was we stopped using chemicals. And of course, we're doing composting and crop rotations and cover crops and all the things. And nature just took care of it all. Yeah. So it was really powerful to see that soil come back to life. It is totally possible. And that soil was, I'm not kidding you, it was dead. It was lifeless. And I thought, I wonder if this is what the surface of the moon might be like. That kind of. Well,
they say there's soil on Mars. No, there's no soil on Mars or the moon. That is dirt. I mean, soil is living.
That's right.
And what they're doing, all this stuff, are we going to go to Mars? How much money they waste? We're going to look for life on Mars. There's no life on Mars. There's life on Earth, losing one species per second. So they're turning soil on Earth into dirt, like on Mars.
Yeah, they are. They're killing it. They are.
Can I say something here? It is. We can restore the soil, regenerate if you like. No chemicals, though, please. Okay. I did a survey in Darling Downs in Australia, and they said, the place to get worms is next to the school building, in the ditch next to the school building. And they said the reason is the farmers' kids go to the school, so they never spray around the school, and it's the only place you can get worms. This is for fishermen. Was next to the school. So I went to have a look, and it's true. That's the only place I found worms, and all the fields around I surveyed, next to the school. So they don't want to poison their kids. But it actually ended up being 2 new species called Bongine in the Darling Downs. So a couple of new species of earthworms there. Wow. So that's the situation. So the fisherman is actually a lovely long worm, and a native earthworm. Yeah. We know nothing is ecology. I just named it. That's the situation.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think this is a good place to wrap it up, because you've given us a lot to think of. And I think that, your ranting, or what I would reframe as passion, has given us a lot to think about. And you've also given us a lot of what we can do: organic breakfasts, demanding organic food, taking responsibility for our own health and the health of our planet by being mindful of how we're purchasing our food, maybe even growing our own food when we can without the use of chemicals in our own yards and our back
as
gardens,
much as possible.
as much as possible
Or
on our
balcony.
patios. Yeah, that's right. And then also just really paying attention to where we're getting our information from, and knowing that nature is here to lead us, and it's our choice to follow her, because she's going to show us the way if we can just listen and pay attention, wake up.
Well put, Natalie. Fantastic. Can't add to that.
Grateful you joined us for that conversation and interview. If you haven't subscribed to Heart and Soil Magazine yet, head over to heartandsoilmagazine.com, click on that subscribe button, and join us for just $39.99 a year. You make yourself an amazing day, and I'm really grateful you're part of our community.